Liberty Blue
Rangers Podcast. With Andrew Chelby. And Nick Zararis.
Rangers fans, welcome to the best Rangers podcast in town. I am Andrew Chelney alongside Nick Zararis, and we are Liberty Blue. We scream about the Rangers so that you can save your voice. That's how deeply we care about you, and we appreciate that you've joined us for the ride. This is episode 32, live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. We'll put the full video up on our YouTube at Liberty Blue Podcast, and the audio version will be available as an audio podcast as well. Search Liberty Blue on your favorite podcast platform, and it should be there. Give the show that shiny and illustrious 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps the show way more than you think it does. At Liberty Blue Pod on Twitter and Instagram, I'm at Chelney Andrew, Chelney Andrew, alongside Nick Zararis, Nick Zararis. Those are our personal Twitter handles to follow as well. Nick, well, the Rangers are exactly who we thought they were.
First of all, rest in peace to the late Denny Green, Hall of Fame press conference quote. That is one of the most immortal phrases in the history of sports. I still remember staying up on that was a Monday Night Football game between the Bears and the Cardinals, and I remember staying up to watch that. So first of all, let's pay respects to the dead. Secondly, that game against the Bruins was the perfect encapsulation of this Rangers season.
Yep.
They get the puck to good areas of the ice. They generate good looks, legitimately good scoring chances that on most nights they would go in. A couple posts, Jeremy Swayman steals 2 goals outright. Just those pucks should have gone in. A goalie made a really good play. And then the Bruins, with their superior structure, wore the game down. And remember, the Bruins only had 5 defensemen in that game because Brandon Carlo got hurt early on in the game. And the Rangers kept shooting and shooting from further away and not getting traffic in front of the net and not winning pucks down low. And slowly but surely, the game became the way the Bruins want to play. The Bruins are one of, if not the best structured team in the entire league. Whenever the Bruins have the pucks on their stick, they know exactly where the puck needs to go. There's no hesitation. There is no playing the puck off of the glass if there's nobody in the neutral zone close enough to play it. The Bruins are a very well-structured team that know exactly what to do. The Rangers are a team that is still, even at the 46-game mark, unclear of what they are. This is a team where the coach just randomly plucks guys from the 4th line and puts them on the 2nd line, or drops guys from the 1st line to the 3rd line with no real rhyme or reason. It can be 8 minutes into a game. It could be halfway through the 3rd period. Whenever he gets one of those weird hunches, like, you know, how baseball managers used to like rub their bellies to get ideas. Oh, I need to pinch hit for this guy in this situation. I feel it in my gut. Okay, that's great and all, but putting this player in your top 6 with no real discernible change in how they play, at some point, we got to say what it is. And this is a team, I don't want to say coasting, but treading water. They are content with where they are. They're playing at a reasonable pace. They know they're going to be a playoff team if they keep playing the way they're playing. And there is no interest in them being a little bit more aggressive at the risk of conceding more defensively, considering the problems they've had at points. But there's plenty to get into. The floor is yours, Andrew.
Well, and the broadcast talked about it during the Bruins game as well, at how the Bruins with 5 defensemen continued to be as aggressive as they were with 6. They played the exact same style. They played the exact same way that they would if everybody was out there on the ice and Carlo didn't get hurt. They played aggressively. They played to get the puck off of the Rangers stick and to just basically keep it for as long as they possibly could. The Rangers loved forcing those cross-ice passes, as they have tried to do in every game this season. Sometimes successfully, a lot of times not very much so, and that directly caused one of the goals. I think it was Zibanejad and Kreider, those 2 guys. Like, they tried that ridiculous pass, it didn't work, and it went the other way, and the Bruins scored, and that was basically the game. Like, the Rangers love forcing and falling back to what they know how to do, which is those long passes that, if you're playing a good team, most of those don't get through, because you're playing the best team. Not only have they scouted you, they have the personnel on the roster to break those passes up. They have the skill set to be like, we know that you do this. and we're going to break it down every time you do it. And the Rangers were like, bet. And they did it, and they did it, and they did it, and they kept doing it for 60 minutes, and they lost. What a shocker. Like, this team could not generate 5-on-5 offense, a shocker. They waited for power plays to happen, and their power play that needs to be fixed. Like, they need to do something with that power play, because it is not scoring anything. It is not generating a whole lot. They need to change something that hasn't been changed. The Gerard Gallant, for whatever reason, just he's changing everything except for the power play that's not working. Okay, cool, got it. Like, they need to do something here that kind of just changes the way that they think on a given shift. It doesn't have to be the first line, it doesn't have to be the fourth line. Just whatever it is that the Rangers are doing with the puck on their stick, there needs to be a change of mentality, because these cross ice passes, these, if there's no Ranger coming up to the neutral zone, I'm just going to dump it in, as opposed to keeping it in our zone and then and just maintaining possession. Like, there's not a whole lot of flow, it feels like, a lot of times, and that's one of the things that Gerard Gallant really needs to fix.
There's so many things that go into that it all feeds into, all of these little things feed into each other. The way they play in the defensive zone, that hold on for dear life when anybody other than Fox and Lindgren are on the ice. I forget what it was. I forget who had it during the week last week, after the Bruins game, but just the difference of the Rangers when Fox is on the ice versus when he isn't. I think they're being outscored at 5-on-5 by like 16 when Fox isn't on the ice, something ridiculous like that, which goes to show you just how important he is to the team, because they don't encourage Trouba and Miller and Schneider and, God forbid, Harper to skate with the puck forward, to try and take some pressure off of the forecheck, to make the passes a little bit easier. They are encouraging those long stretch passes from the defensive zone into the neutral zone. And then if they gain possession in the neutral zone, if it's not Panarin, they're gaining the zone with speed, forcing the puck to the middle, trying for that cross-seam pass. If it is Panarin, he skates the puck into the offensive zone with speed, throws on the brakes at the half wall, tries to force the puck cross seam. And the problem they have is they do not have anybody who has a Panarin sense. Like, I don't know any other way to describe it. For whatever reason, Ryan Strome always kind of was in the right spot. We like to make fun of Ryan Strome a lot for his inability to put the puck in open nets, for him kind of popping off out of nowhere after getting acquired for basically nothing. Ryan Spooner wasn't in the NHL 2 years after that trade was committed. But the problem they have is that Trocheck doesn't know how to play with Panarin. He does not have a sense for where he needs to be on the ice when he's out there with 10. So it makes Panarin's job a lot harder at 5-on-5, because he needs guys who are able to play off of him. Trocheck has never been an elite high-end player. He's a very good player, very good 200-foot player. He's noticeable. He's going to get to dirty areas of the ice. That's not what Panarin needs. Panarin needs somebody who has the playmaking ability to just inherently know where he needs to be to receive the puck. Trocheck's just kind of floating around. It's part of the problem they have with the power play. Trocheck is just kind of floating around out there and not really a threat to score from where he's shooting from, because he never gets the puck. If he gets 1 or 2 looks on a power play for the whole night, that's a lot for him, considering he never shoots when he's on the ice. Granted, that's a problem for 3 of the 5 guys who are on the Rangers power play, but they have put a lot of stock into, we think Trocheck can make this team better, but he doesn't inherently fit with the way they want to play. That's not to say he's not a good player. Trocheck is a good player. His 5-on-5 numbers haven't been great this year. They're definitely the worst they've been in a couple of years. Granted, you got to account for the Carolina tax. Carolina's underlying numbers are all kind of juiced because of the style they play, but he is not playing a 5-on-5 the way the Rangers expected. He has gotten 0 puck luck. He has the most posts of anybody on the Rangers, and he doesn't play the way we need Panarin center to play with him. So they've kind of backed themselves into a corner here where they don't know what to do with him. They don't know what to do with Panarin. And they've been reorganizing around that problem all season, whether it's kids in the top 6, whether it's old guys in the top 6, whether it's Panarin with Zibanejad. They still don't really know. I mean, you saw the lines that they had at the practice on Saturday. You saw that the lines were the same yesterday at practice. There is nothing here to magically say, unless if something magically goes right, sure, and the lineup starts working, but there's no real plan here of trial and error of this with this. Okay, it doesn't work next. we are going back to the same things that haven't worked for long stretches. Now they're going to play Kreider on the off wing. They're going to play Kravtsov and Gauthier on the fourth line with Leschyshyn. They're going to put the kid line back together, and they've got Trocheck with VZ and Gaudreau. Great. I have no faith in any of that really working beyond that first line at 5-on-5, and even that isn't a guarantee. I mean, you saw Zibanejad get his doors blown off at 5-on-5 against Bergeron on Thursday night, and that's because Bergeron is the best two-way center in the league.
Well, and that goes back. We talked about this before the show as well. The Rangers like players, and you said this before the show, that the Rangers like players, but they don't know where to put them once they have them. Okay, so they got Trocheck. Where do you put him? He's struggling on the power play, and again, he's hit 100,000 posts. Like if a few of those go in, our talking point about Trocheck is different. So we have to take that into consideration when talking about Vinny Trocheck. Is that, listen, my man's is hitting. Like he's just doing post practice. All he's doing all season, instead of having the puck go in, he is simply practicing how many times can I hit the post without it going in. Like that's what he's doing all season. So listen, like at a certain point, you have to just concede that, hey, like if a few of these shots go in, our viewpoint of Trocheck and maybe even the entire offense changes, because then if a few of those goals go in, the Rangers win a few more games. They have the puck let go their way a little bit. Maybe there's some different results there. But ultimately, right now, Vinny Trocheck can't buy a goal, and also he doesn't know, like you said, he has no idea what to do with Panarin on the ice. At least with Ryan Strome, like, he would luck into 40, 50 points because Ryan Strome knew how to play off of him. That was one of the biggest question marks that I had when that kind of, I don't want to say trade because it wasn't a trade, but like the switch at 2C happened, was you need a center that knows how to play with Panarin. It's a lot easier to play with Panarin than anybody else because Panarin is so gifted offensively. He makes the offense easy. However, you still need to read where he's going to throw the puck to. You still have to read how to position yourself in such a way that you are not only the receiver of the pass, but also in a way such that you can direct the puck into the net. That is not an easy skill. It is difficult because in the NHL, everything moves at such a pace that if you are not at the perfect spot, perfect position, at the perfect time, that puck is not going in the net. It is a hard skill to have. And Trocheck right now does not have that skill at all. He and Panarin are just not on the same page a lot of the time, and that results in a lot of these awkward passes that either don't go the way the Rangers want them to, or they get deflected off a stick or blocked or whatever. They're not on the same page, and you can see that in the way that they play their offense. And how you fix that is a great question that Gerard Gallant I would love the answer to, because right now, at least for Ryan Strome, when the Rangers had him, when they were on the same line, you knew that Ryan Strome had a sense of how to play with Panarin. You had a sense of, okay, well, he's going to drive this certain way, and Panarin's going to hit him. And if that puck's not going in, because if it's an open net, Ryan Strome won't hit it. But if the goalie is somewhere in the range, Ryan Strome probably scores, and you can celebrate and do all these things. With Trocheck, if it's Panarin Trocheck on a 2v2, I have zero understanding of what can possibly happen, because there's 100 different ways that 2 and 2 could go.
It's really complicated because there isn't really a way to know how to play with somebody like Panarin, because what makes him so dangerous is his unpredictability. If you can anticipate where you need to be, so can the other guys. That's what makes Panarin so dangerous. When he throws the brakes on at the half wall, once he gains the zone with speed, he is baiting people to come towards him in the hope that that will open up a passing lane somewhere else on the ice. Trocheck has never played with anybody of Panarin's skill level at any point in his career, whether in Carolina or in Florida. He's a good player, but his skill set isn't suited to play with Panarin. I will go back at some point this week and find the episode we did back in July after the Rangers signed Trocheck, and I said, and I remember saying this, we all liked making fun of Ryan Strome, but at some point we will regret that we let this chemistry go because that does matter to some degree. That chemistry that Panarin and Strome had, there was a reason Ryan Strome has never played as well at any other point in his NHL career as he did the one season he played with John Tavares, and the last 3 years he was in New York playing with Panarin. There's a real track record there of knowing how to play with a high-end player. And some of Trocheck, as we said, some of what made Trocheck valuable is the style he played in Carolina. On a team like Carolina, which is built around volume, grinding, getting pucks to the net, being in those dirty areas of the ice that are challenging to get to, Trocheck is a ton of value. On a Rangers team that is more skill-based, which is more inclined for the cross-seam pass, which is more inclined for point shots and more difficult plays, Trocheck really hasn't been in a system like this before, where you don't really know how it's going to fit until it all kind of lines up. And yes, I know Trocheck played for Gallant way back when in Florida. Trocheck's a very different player now than what he was that first time around when he was with Gallant. So the one other thing I want to touch on from the Boston game before we kind of move it on a little more general speaking here, at some point, for the love of God, do something to the goddamn power play. They had I think they had 4 power plays in the game. They created 4 chances. They got 4 scoring chances on the power plays they had against the Bruins last week. They have no feel for how they need to play on the power play. It is way too stagnant. This is the oldest cliche possible. I was told this as a child playing roller hockey as like a 7-year-old. If you are not moving your feet, the defense doesn't have to move their feet either. That is the easiest way to think about what the Rangers power play struggles right now. They are way too stagnant. They are moving the puck and not their bodies. The entire point of the power play, why it is an advantage, is you have more guys than the other team. You have more guys that can cover more space. They have less guys who can cover less space. You need to be using that space to your advantage and dictating where the defense goes once you move the puck. You need guys constantly circling. You need movement. You need Fox coming down to the circle and Zibanejad creeping towards the middle as opposed to Zibanejad staying at the top of the circle waiting for the one-timer. You need to start shooting at Kreider again. Kreider led the league in power play goals last year, banking pucks in. Why are we not doing what we know works?
Are you saying that the power play isn't just for the cross ice to Zibanejad hour? Is that not what the power play is for? Are you saying that the Rangers should do something other than trying to force that cross ice pass to Zibanejad for the one timer? The Rangers should do more than that one thing that they do for 2 minutes? No way.
The problem is that is their one mode of scoring on the power play. I was talking about this with my one of my Islander fan friends over the weekend, and he's been lamenting how god-awful the Islanders' power play has been basically since John Tavares left. The problem the Islanders have is they have no trigger man. They don't have anybody who can rip that one-timer shot. Their best one-time shooter is Ryan Pulock, who shoots with the accuracy of Jacob Trouba. So you're not getting great. You're not like Pulock's got a wicked shot, one of the hardest shots in the entire league.
Yeah, but doesn't hit anything, but
it doesn't hit the net, and that's the real problem the Islanders have. The Rangers' problem is they have somebody who has a really good one-timer. So they just keep, eventually it'll hit, and they keep running it back and running it back. Well, you need to have more than one way. And we've seen glimpses of it where Fox will shoot a little bit more. That'll open up a rebound once, because if Fox is creeping in, the defenders have to come up a little bit more towards him. That's going to let somebody closer to the net crash down for a rebound or a deflection. There's very easy remedies. We know this power play can work. It worked last year with Ryan Strome. The skill difference between Strome and Trocheck, maybe a little bit more of a hockey IQ thing from Strome, knowing where he needs to be a little bit more. But Trocheck's a quality hockey player. There is a reason he's been around as long as he has, the reason he's getting paid the money he is. They don't know how to use him on the power play. That spot needs to be someone else. That you have a real argument that maybe you need to put Panarin on the second power play unit and reconfigure both units altogether, as opposed to this. We know this works. Eventually it'll start working again, because it's been a few weeks now of the power play just being totally ineffective. I mean, the Rangers are in the 20s in the power play. That's just, with as much talent as there is here, man, that's just not acceptable.
I mean, this is one of the leading problems that you have when you play one unit a minute and 50 seconds, and then you throw in the second power play unit for the final garbage time of the power play once everybody clears the zone, and then you have 18 seconds left, and the second power play just, Gallant just sends out 5 guys and says, have fun, good luck. When if the first dump in doesn't go their way, that the power play is over. That's one of the dangers that there's a lot of dangers that comes with that, but one of the biggest ones is if that first power play unit isn't scoring, then you have nothing, because you force that first power play unit that isn't scoring to stay out there for a minute and a half, for a minute and 40 seconds. They get nothing accomplished. And then by the time the second power play unit comes on the ice, it's over. If Gerard Gallant were to evenly split the times and potentially even split some of the talent, say Panarin moved down to power play 2. I mean, as an example, I'm not saying that you should absolutely do this or the power play is never going to fit. That's not what I'm saying. But just like as an example, as a just a thought, as a thought, like if you move Panarin down to power play 2, let's say, and you play the first power play unit for a minute or a minute 10, whatever, and then you give the second power play unit some time to breathe. That way, the other team, because listen, everybody in the NHL at this point knows the Rangers will essentially only play one power play unit. They don't even have to scout the second power play unit. They don't have to look, because 85% of the power play is those 5 guys that are on the ice. And what do those 5 guys on the ice do? They stand around and they pass it around 100 times. They try to force the cross ice pass. Eventually, either Zibanejad for the one-timer, maybe Fox from the point, or once in a while, Panarin will try to shoot from the circle. That's it. Kreider is in front of the net. He scored 52 goals last season. A bunch of those were from tipping pucks on the power play. No one's shooting at him right now for reasons. So he's just standing there like a lawn gnome, just kind of he's there and people see him, but that's it for his job. And they're not utilizing him properly on the power play. They are passing it around too much. Every team knows what the Rangers are doing. Yeah, of course they're not going to score. And they're not changing their process either. Why? That doesn't make any sense to me. If your power play was scouted so well because you do the same thing every game and it's not working anymore, and yet you refuse to change it, I got nothing.
It's frustrating. That's the biggest thing, especially about the power play, because there's talent on this team. The Rangers have so many talented guys who have the ability to be dangerous, especially on the man advantage. All right, changing up gears here, and this I think speaks to a lot of what we've been talking about for the first 20 minutes of the episode. The Rangers just kind of feel, meh. There's nothing like absurdly wrong here. They have more than made up the gap of the first couple months. They were not in a playoff spot as recently as I think the first week of December. They've been in a playoff spot for I think I want to say 4.5 weeks straight now. The Islanders are kind of falling off. That's one less team to worry about. You've got the Penguins and the Capitals that are behind you, and then you've got the Devils and Hurricanes. But the Devils are 7 points clear of you. The Hurricanes are 9 points clear of you. The Rangers feel pretty good about where they're at in terms of the playoffs, and it's kind of, I don't want to say it's what happened last year, where like basically by February we knew the Rangers were going to be a playoff team last year. It was just a matter of what seed they were going to finish in. That's kind of what's happening now, where they're playing games a lot more conservatively. They are dragging a lot of these games to overtime. They are just worried about getting that 1 point as opposed to going for the 2. There is no real sense of urgency here. They are playing to get to the deadline because they know reinforcements are coming at the deadline. That is the single biggest takeaway I have from the Rangers for the last couple of weeks, because they're 6-2-2 in their last 10. That's fine. They're 5th in the entire league in scoring chances. They're 19th in goals over the last 10 games, 20th in expected goals, 26th in high danger chances. They're 31st in shooting percentage, and they're 6th in save percentage, and that's the last 10 games. That tells me this team is playing a very safe, let's not get killed going back the other way. Let's take as many shots as we can. Let's try and kill them with volume. And that is a real change with how the Rangers have played the last couple of years. This is something Josh Califin has been working on for years, trying to isolate what teams' average scoring chance is the most valuable. The Rangers were one of the best teams in the league the last couple of years at that, because the Rangers have never shot a ton. They've always been a quality over quantity team. But this year, that is slowly changing. And the telltale is that in scoring chances, 5th. High danger chances, 26th, expected goals, 20th. That tells you they're taking a lot lower quality chances. And that is a fundamental change in how they're playing. And I think it speaks to trying to play things a little bit safer and just getting to the deadline, because that really seems to be, because there's no urgency here. Speaking to a lot of the problems we've had for the last couple of weeks, what we've talked about on the show, they're not really changing anything. They're giving VZ and Gaudreau run in the top 6 to play it safe. There's no real sense of urgency to correct these problems here, because it's a known fact the Rangers are going to add at the deadline.
My question to that is why? Because I understand the thought process of let's just stay healthy and just stay the course until the deadline to then when we get everybody added and all these things, and then Gerard Gallant could just run wild with whoever he gets, his new toys, and then you could be off and running. My question is this: you have on most nights one of the best goalies on the planet in your crease. So wouldn't that give your offense more kind of confidence to just go for it? Why play it so safe when you have a goal? I mean, listen, the Rangers kind of did that with Lundqvist his whole career, and he didn't end up with a Stanley Cup. So maybe that can work, and maybe that won't work. Who knows? But the Rangers have, I don't know if you know this, Nick, a really good goalie in Igor Shesterkin. Why are the Rangers playing it safe with Gaudreau in the top 6, with VC in the top 6, with, just insert guy here, as opposed to going for it sometimes and actually trying, to put full on offensive pressure on the other team at times when that you have Igor back there. So if you give up a 2-on-1, if you give up a 3-on-2 opportunity, your goalie is really good and can probably make that stop when needed. Why are the Rangers so okay with a 2-2 tie going into the overtime, a 1-1 tie going in overtime, when their overtime stats aren't even that great, honestly? Like,
No.
when you get to overtime, the Rangers is like most of the time they lose. So why they are so content with that 1 point as opposed to giving the other team 0 and taking 2 for themselves? To me, I just don't understand why they are so okay with that thought process. To me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, that's part of being on the outside looking in. You have to think about this from the perspective of the GM, the president, the owner, the coach. We as Ranger fans have been very lucky that most nights James Dolan forgets the Rangers exist. We are very grateful that James Dolan has been involved with the Knicks. There is a real sentiment amongst people. I mean, Larry has written about this a decent amount. Karp wrote about this a decent amount at the end before he left the Athletic, that Dolan took a more visible presence when he fired everybody at the end of the 56-game season, and he made Drury the GM and the president, and he's getting a nice healthy salary doing both of those jobs, even though that should probably be 2 separate people doing that, because that is a lot of responsibility to handle. The owner is invested now. The owner is, we need to be winning more often than not, and we need to be filling this arena every single night, which Ranger fans already did, even when the team was dog shit during that 4-year stretch.
They filled it in practice. They had an open practice on Saturday. The arena was packed with people. It was basically a full MSG watching this team practice.
They got a good 11,000 people in there for a practice on Saturday afternoon. Yeah, on the day of
practice.
Yeah, definitely. It's a weird thing, because you got to realize the different conflicts of interest here. For Gallant, for the first, I would say 3 months of the season, it was survival. It was, I need to be able to keep this job beyond tomorrow. That was the deciding factor in a lot of his decisions. Now that they've stabilized, there's a very clear, we need to maintain. It's a lot better to maintain than get a little bit of bad luck trying to play things a little too aggressively. And then suddenly, you're more in a dogfight, whatever. It's very short-sighted the way they are choosing to handle this. I completely agree with you in that regard. I talked about this on, I think, last week's episode. I was DMing with somebody back and forth, having an argument that the organization knows Barkley.
Nick having an argument with somebody? No way. Can't believe it.
I only do it in the DMs. I don't argue on the timeline. On
we don't argue. That's right. We're not here to argue.
I'm not here to argue. We are not here to argue. I don't care what most people think, to be completely honest with you. I really don't. Because there's no vested interest. This is not debate class. This is not high school. This is not college. And everybody has an opinion that's great. You have no right to my time to debate you. That is not how this works. You have no right to my time. If you want to make a point and it's reasonable and we can have a discussion, sure. But this is not high school debate class. You are not Ben Shapiro. I do not care. But the argument about, well, the organization knows Barkley Goodrow, Jimmy Vesey aren't top six forwards. That's the coach trying to save his job. No, it's not. The Rangers are very much going to go into this game tonight against Florida, at least starting the game with Barkley Goodrow and Jimmy Vesey playing on the second line with Vincent Trocheck, because they are bending over backwards to accommodate a player they didn't really consider the fit of. In any rational decision-making, you'd be playing Hedel with Panarin and you'd be playing Trocheck on the third line, and you would figure out what to do on the wings with Zibanejad and Panarin with Hedel. You'd figure that out. But the coach is, I trust these guys. They are low risk. They are low event. That is the entire ethos of the way Gerard Gallant wants to play hockey. Low event. Let our best players be better than the other team's best players. The problem is you do not always have the best players in a given game. Against the Bruins had probably three of the four best players in that game last Thursday. Tonight, against Florida, there's a real argument Matthew Tkachuk is better than anybody on the Rangers other than Adam Fox and Igor, and the goalie's a little more fickle. Sasha Barkov, probably better than anybody on the Rangers. Can you outguys the Florida Panthers, who have underachieved all season because they have gotten really bad luck and the magical skill stylings of Paul Maurice? Can you outguys a team that isn't playing particularly well? The Panthers, I think they're 7-2-1 in their last 10. This is a good example of you should win this game. Do not overcomplicate it. This is a perfect situation for what you're talking about here. This is an opportunity. This team, Florida, concedes a lot defensively. You will have chances. Will you capitalize on them, or will you play it safe and try and just get 1 point out of this and keep the ball rolling until your additions, whatever shape those come? And the deadline is still 2 months away. I mean, we're almost at the end of January here, but the deadline's not till March 3rd. And realistically, the Rangers probably aren't going to be able to add anybody, at least till probably the week before the deadline, because they want to maximize as much cap space as possible to make roster additions.
We talked about this last week, that the game against the Bruins was the biggest litmus test of the season. That how they played that game was going to dictate how I felt for the next however many games it is until the deadline. And they are exactly who we think they are, a team that can't really do much 5-on-5, and they got beat by a better team. So when we talked about this last week of, okay, well, if you really think you're a cup contender right now, then go beat them. And that didn't happen. And the Bruins won again because that's all they do this season, because they know what their coach wants. They know the system that they're playing in. They played it to perfection. They had 5 defensemen. They played the exact same way, and the Rangers couldn't handle that. And that was it. And the Rangers lost again. So, yeah, I mean, they beat Columbus last week. Woo! But realistically, how they played it in that 60 minutes was really going to dictate, at least for me, how I felt about this team moving forward. And right now, can I say they're cup contenders? Did you see the way they played against Boston? I mean, like, they had good chances. They definitely, like, it wasn't the worst showing. There was definitely glimpses of, okay, I mean, maybe like this team can do these things, and maybe there's some kind of flow to this offense and all these things. Well, they scored 1 goal and that was the game. So ultimately, these, like, I guess they kind of have to continue to tread water until March. Like, as I don't like saying that, but as of right now, I mean, okay, so they lost a stinker. We talked about this last week, a stinker against Montreal. Like, those 2 points would have been critical tonight, right? Because if you take those 2 points against Montreal, then whatever happens against Florida, it's mitigated slightly. But now that you lost to a really bad team in Montreal last week, you lose to Boston, this is a really important game for a lot of reasons, but also because now you have to make up those lost points. You lost to a bad team. You lost to a good team. You got to get those points somewhere, and the Florida Panthers are coming in hot. As you said, winners of 7 of the last 10 games. This is a team that is angry. They're not in the playoffs right now, and they want to get these points as much as they can. Bobrovsky's not playing, which, honestly, the way Bobrovsky doesn't play kind of benefits Florida Panthers that he's not playing right now. And Spencer Knight is down in the AHL right now. They're going to play a quote unquote third string goalie in Florida right in about half an hour. this is important. They need to come out and they need to hammer this guy with shots. They need to get good opportunities, because if they don't and they allow this guy to basically get into a flow and possibly steal a game like Sam Montembeau did in Montreal, that's a problem. And no matter how well you want to coast your way to a point, if it goes to overtime or whatever, at the end of the day, these are games you have to get 2 points in if you want to be taken seriously by the rest of the NHL.
That's the thing here. I mean, this is a winnable game, but they've got some tough ones. They've got Toronto this week. They've got Vegas this week. Next week, they've got Calgary. After the After the All-Star break, they've got Calgary. There are real challenges here coming up. The Rangers have a difficult schedule the rest of the way. They still have to see Pittsburgh a couple more times. They have to see Washington a couple more times. They have to see Carolina and the Devils, I believe, one more time each. There is a lot left to go here. So just playing it safe is okay in the interim, in the short term, but there needs to be the light bulb needs to go on here at some point for some of these guys. If they continue with this rudderless lineup construction where every single game, 10 minutes into the game, the lineup is getting changed, they are never going to get into the rhythm they need to. Part of what helped the Rangers last year was they went into the playoffs playing super well. They got in the right form at the right time. And even that didn't make a whole lot of difference. It took a little bit of luck and Igor getting right, and Lindgren coming back, and Sidney Crosby
and Pittsburgh's goalies all going down.
Correct. It took a lot of things going right. But you want to be in good shape by the time you get to the deadline. Then that 15-game stretch between the trade deadline and the start of the playoffs, that is when you find this is how we're assembling our roster for the playoffs. We want to be clicking well by the time we get into the playoffs. They still can't even get to, say, the point where we know what the lineup is going to look like any given day. I guarantee you this lineup that's out there right now probably will not finish the game the way it is constructed right now with that Lecision, Gauthier, and
Kravtsov.
Why am I drawing? Yeah, Kravtsov. God, why is Kravtsov? Kravtsov was playing well the last 2 weeks.
I don't know, man.
In the top 6, and he's doing what they asked. They said we want you to focus on defense, and he's been really good defensively this season since he came back from the last round of healthy scratches. And they still opted for Gaudreau up there, and they said, they were conceding a lot defensively. Gaudreau's not good at defense at 5-on-5. Gaudreau's
but he has rings, Nick. But he has rings.
I hope
as my camera goes out of focus, he has rings.
I hope he's at least brought these rings to the locker room and let the other guys on the team see them. At least get something out of this other than just having him on the team. It's great that he's won in other places, but at some point, you got to admit reality here. Gaudreau is useful as a penalty killer. He's an okay bottom 6 forward. Playing him with Panarin and Trocheck and saying cover for their defense is not a practical strategy.
No.
This is not the NBA where I can put out a stopper with 2 offense first guys and the other two parts are a stable part of our lineup and say it's okay. We can put him on the other team's best player. Gaudreau cannot defend 3 guys at once. There is a lot more that goes into hockey roster construction. And yeah, that's part of why the Rangers haven't found it yet. But we need a light bulb to go on here in the next couple of weeks. Because to Andrew's point, the Bruins game was a real measuring stick to kind of see where this team was at a little bit past the halfway point. Right now, I think they're probably a first round, maybe a second round playoff team. Beyond that, I don't particularly feel confident about this group right now. There is plenty of time for that to change. And granted, if Igor gets going, and Fox keeps playing like he's the best defenseman in the league, maybe they don't need a whole lot more to go right than that. But that's not really an assuring strategy, which is really our point here. Just relying on your best players to be the best players every single night, that's not a long-term sustainable strategy. For individual games, maybe an individual playoff series, that works. But eventually the rent comes due. You cannot play above your means forever.
Could be worse. We could be Canucks fans.
Hey, Jack Studnicka, who the Bruins waived more than once last year, is on their first line at practice today. Quinn Hughes is on their second defensive pair. Their coach didn't say a single coherent thing on TNT in his entire time. The man did not enunciate. He was talking into a microphone, and he was always talking like he had just had 4 beers and mumbling.
Well, he would always try to get people to fight on the ice. I don't know if you
Yeah.
if you listen to him on TNT, he would always be like, "Well, they should have thrown a punch or thrown a hit or done something as opposed to when or hey, maybe just score more goals in the team and then you win and then you get 2 points and you go home." But no, I mean, Rick Tocchet, dude, I don't know. I don't know why Vancouver loves him so much. I don't know why
You know
him
the answer to that.
specifically.
You know
I
the
mean,
answer to that. The
I
owner was watching game. The owner watched him on TV.
right.
That
Dude,
it's the same reason the Colts hired Jeff Saturday. Jim Irsay watches a lot of
I
TV.
guess
It's
I
the
don't.
same reason. It's the same reason all of these TV guys get second lives, third lives as coaches, because the owners are the ones who make the decisions. Owners are usually the driving forces in picking who the next coach is, and that's because it is based on connection. The owners like to feel like they're part of the process. If they're not picking the players, they at least get to pick the coach, and the coach gets to mold the players. They feel like they're important. And when you're an owner, like what's going on in Vancouver, who doesn't really know what makes a good hockey team, you're just inclined to throw things at the wall and see if anything sticks.
Well, he also embarrassed the hell out of himself with this whole Bruce Boudreau situation. Like if you're gonna fire your head coach, you don't
Just
hang
do it.
on to him for months at a time because allegedly now I'm not a TNT member, right? I'm not an NHL and TNT member, so I don't have their contract in front of me. But allegedly there was something in Tocchet's contract that was something along the lines of he has to let TNT know 4 weeks in advance that he is getting a head coaching job so that he can leave his TV gig so that TNT finds a replacement. So this has been in the works for a long time, allegedly. Now, I don't know if you know this, Nick, but if I was a head coach, if I was an owner of an NHL team, and I did not like my head coach, and I was going to find a replacement, I for one would fire the coach I currently have my assistant be an interim for a little bit, and wait until this alleged clause or whoever else comes along and hire them instead, as opposed to keeping this head coach that he knows he's going to get fired. I know I'm firing him. The media knows it. The fans know it. Everybody knows it. It's an open secret. Bruce Boudreau was going to get fired, and he was still coaching. Like, what are you doing? And on top of that, okay, so you fire him because your roster is a dumpster fire. As my camera goes out of focus again, your whole roster is a dumpster fire because your general manager did a terrible job of cap anything. Like he gave Oliver Ekman-Larsson $1 trillion. He gave Connor Garland $1 trillion. And now OEL was a healthy scratch. All these things. Okay. Your team is a disaster. Bruce Boudreau is supposed to do what exactly with these people? I don't know. What is Rick Tocchet supposed to do? Allegedly, Elliot Friedman on the Jeff Marek show today said that they one of the reasons they brought in JT Miller, one of the reasons they brought in Rick Tocchet was because essentially to babysit JT Miller. He didn't say that, but that was insinuated that basically he was brought in to fix JT Miller. What are you doing? Like, am I going crazy here? Like, what Vancouver? What in the world are you doing? So you know what? With all the problems the Rangers have, at least they're not the Vancouver Canucks.
That is the extreme end of what happens when the owner is too involved, when the GM is just adding players as opposed to being conscientious about how the players fit. And you come into a situation now where somebody is going to have to tear that down entirely and basically restart, and that'll take at least 2 or 3 years. Tocchet had an okay stint in Arizona. They won a playoff series against the Oilers in the bubble, which, how much credit you want to give that, whatever. But his greatest attribute as a coach is getting more out of guys defensively. Really helped evolve Clayton Keller's game in Arizona to make him more responsible as a two-way player. Clayton Keller's a very good two-way player now, and that Tocchet does get credit for that. But one coach is not going to make a difference here in Vancouver. That's really the thing. And there's maybe like 5 coaches in the entire NHL that actually matter. Beyond that, they're just field trip chaperones. They're just there to fill out the lineup card, make sure that somebody's running practice. But most of these guys don't make a discernible impact from the other. As long as you don't have one of the 5 worst ones, you're fine, relatively speaking. Gallant annoys the hell out of me, but at least he's not David Quinn. Like there are levels to this. There are levels to this. Like, Gallant just outright will lie to your face, whereas David Quinn will treat you like you're stupid. And there is a difference between those two things, which is important. The coach should be able to effectively communicate with the public. Gallant very much does not like talking to anybody. Very antisocial person. All right, we got 5 minutes to go here before we wrap up. They got 3 games this week. They got Florida, Toronto, and Vegas. Vegas is at home. They got to go to Toronto and Florida at home tonight. I'm very curious to see how they deploy this lineup. I've seen a few different people tweak different configurations. The kid line took line rushes as the second line during warm-up, so maybe we'll get our wish of getting those guys a good 14, 15 minutes of ice time. That would go a long way in kind of figuring out what this team is going to look like in the second half of the season, because aside from Hedel, Kakko, and Lafreniere have been all over the lineup. Lafreniere has really had a rough go of it as of late. He's not feeling it right now, and it's really hard. I mean, in the Bruins game, there was that one sequence where he had the puck in a great area, but he took an extra half second. He passed instead of shooting and passed out of a good scoring chance, and that's entirely confidence. That is entirely, I don't feel this, I got to get rid of it, as opposed to, all right, I can make a play. Let's see it happen tonight. Florida is a winnable game. This is a third-string goalie. Take advantage of playing a third-string goalie. And that's if Spencer Knight doesn't play. I know they recalled him. I don't know if he got to New York in time and in time to be the backup or to dress tonight.
Think about it this way. The Florida Panthers this season are 11-14-2 away from their home, right? So this is, by all accounts, should be a Rangers win.
The Rangers are a bad home team for whatever reason.
Listen,
the Rangers' record at home is not great.
Right. I mean, listen, they're 11-9-4 at home. At least they have a positive record. It's not 11-14-2. Like, by all accounts, Rangers should, in theory, win this game. Then they go to Toronto, a team that has lost 3 times in regulation all season at home. 17-3-4 at home. Then they play Vegas, a team that, if I can find it, away from home are 15-4-2. This, like, by all accounts, you have to beat Florida. I understand that we were concerned with how the Rangers were going to get points from December to now, and they found a way to say, we don't care who we're playing. We're going to beat the good teams and for some reason lose to bad teams. I don't know why they decided to do that, but that was their strategy and it worked. So I guess, all these stats, and that's great and everything, and the Rangers are kind of an enigma, so I guess they don't matter to a certain extent. But this week is really important for a lot of different reasons. Vegas is really good on the road. Toronto is really good at home. Florida has picked it up in the last 10, but they are not very good away from their home rink. These games are crucial, especially these next 2, Florida and Toronto. Vegas is a Western Conference team. This is the last time this season you're going to play them. I think like teams have a pact when East and West teams play together that they have to go to overtime because everybody wants points. So there's like an unwritten rule. If you're tied, send it to overtime. Everybody gets a point. But seriously though, like the Rangers are going to play 3 very good teams. One is desperate. The Florida Panthers are a desperate team that has won 7 of their past 10 games. They want 2 points tonight more than anything else. And then you have to go and play the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are dominant at home, and the Vegas Golden Knights, who are dominant away from home. So they have to ideally 4 points. Bare minimum is 4 points. They need to get 4 points here. They have to beat Toronto. I mean, they have to beat Florida and get points from Toronto or Vegas. If you want to say about the overtime and get 2 points that way, I'd rather you not. I'd rather you just win one of them. But if you're going to do that, please, I'd rather you do that than lose both of them in regulation. They need to get 4 points here in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, I would love for them to get 6 points. That's great. But realistically, the bare minimum should be the Rangers get 4 out of 6 this week against 3 solid teams.
That will do it for this week's episode. Make sure you are subscribed to the show on whatever podcast platform you prefer. We're on all the major ones. If you prefer video, we are on YouTube. There is a little more content drip coming on YouTube every day. Liberty Blue Pod on YouTube, on Instagram and Twitter at Liberty Blue Pod. Content drops pretty frequently. Working on things, putting up pretty little graphics, all that kind of stuff. That's fun. Make sure you're following Andrew and me, both our personals. You'll definitely be seeing shit posts. Chelney Andrew, CHELNEY Andrew, and then mine, Nick Zararis, Nick ZARARIS. Make sure you guys are out there and letting the team know we will not stand for this bullshit. Okay, fix the damn power play.
Fix the power play. I mean,
that's my biggest thing. Fix the power play. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, listen, the meme. I don't know soccer that well, so I don't know the name of the person. But the meme of just like if I speak, I am in big trouble. That is me whenever Sammy Blay gets in remotely in the conversation of anything, because it's like if I speak, I am in big trouble, because that's become my identity now. Is I'm the anti Sammy Blay guy, and I am the give me Pavel Buchnevich until my last dying breath guy. Like that is who I've become. Even though, like, listen. I don't want to reference that trade as much as I do, but when Sammy Blay doesn't have a goal in 1,000 games as a Ranger, you bring it up. But hey, if I speak, I'm in big trouble, so I don't want to speak.
I'm making a new ruling, Andrew. You need to bleep out his name every time you say it, and only when you say it. I can say Sammy Blay's name.
Okay.
You need to bleep out his. You need to bleep out his name.
I don't know about that.
All right, enjoy the game. We'll see you guys.